hot like pepper. But every day, then they take money in bulk. Poor man pikin, they the street, they hawk. Still them talk say, make we no talk. But thank God say, my ego don't come. So my people make you laugh, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. And people make you shout, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, man of the masses, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. My ego diary politico, oh yo yo. My ego don't come, oh yo yo. This man not dey off in mind.
Hello there. Good morning to you, good afternoon to you, and good evening to you from wherever you are watching from. This is Mayegun Live.
Lórí Facebook, lórí YouTube. Gbogbo bó ṣe ń lọ ni Mayegun já wa sí.
Share this broadcast, invite your friends, invite your not so friendly friends, and tell them that Mayegun today.
Bó bá ṣe rere, àní Mayegun máa wí. Ó sì tún ṣe rere, wàá gbọ́ níbẹ̀ o. Mayegun diary.
Their election is supposed to be over, but the campaign for recognition, for congratulations, seems to be the next stage as we speak, as Kalu battles integrity of a stolen election. That's actually the problem right now. Stolen election, getting legitimacy, getting recognition, and indeed, they will do anything for that.
Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Mayegun ti dé. Mayegun ti dé.
Thank you.
Ọ̀ṣèlú ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Mayegun ti dé. Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Mayegun ti dé. Lórí Facebook. Mayegun ti dé. Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Mayegun ti dé. Lórí YouTube. Mayegun ti dé. Àní ẹ̀sùn ràkì. Mayegun ti dé.
Thank you very much. It was Femi Funny Kayode, or for Food Kayode, that went into a seizure, a mental gymnastic. Behind the scene, there's been so much problems. Let me explain something to you so that you will understand this conversation better, okay? Normally, rigging elections in Nigeria is not new. In fact, some of these Egbiris, the Lagos Abobakus, the Oshogbo Alimajiris, naturally, they expect their criminal leaders to rig. So it's not new. But what is new is that for the first time, somebody who actually paid to rig election in his own favor, in Nigeria, like I said, rigging is not new. It's about who can out-rig the other. And usually when you out-rig that way, people don't actually raise any kind of anyway like useless election. No, thank God I'm not part of it. But for the first time, somebody who paid who paid them to rig election for him, who planned everything all along, finally they declared him winner. But he refused to celebrate. He refused to be happy that what he planned, something that should be the reward for his long political career. They say, oh, he has reached the pinnacle of his career. He became a senator. He became a governor. Despite all of his shady past, criminal life and everything, he is still drawing money as a former governor. So, and they said he made a lot of other criminals too. Then he finally, he was declared the president-elect. The country went into money mode, like somebody died. The person who fought to be president, they declared him winner. He can't celebrate. They are now hunting people here and there for recognition across the country. 8.7 million people that they said voted for him. They couldn't even come out in public to give credibility to this certificate. They are asking, why are you complaining about rigging? In fact, you know what other new thing is about this? Before their elections, they said that disobedient now distant thought they go get. And they ensured that they put them in that thought. But the problem now is this. The thought is saying that the person they declared winner didn't win. Now the person they declared winner is now worried about the person in third place. It is so kind of unexplainable, but we will explain them. Nothing unexplainable, so to say. So, a lot of other people, international observers, and many more have refused to give credibility. And Kolu needs that credibility. They started pressuring all the embassies in Nigeria. You need, why has your country leader, your country leaders yet to congratulate the president-elect? We need you to tell them, are they not following the election in Nigeria? Somebody has been declared. So how come your president, your country is yet to send us congratulatory message? Seriously? Really? They started lobbying and they started pressuring. Some ambassadors released statements, congratulations to the president-elect, congratulations, but they are not satisfied. UK Prime Minister congratulated them. The UK ambassador to Nigeria constantly, who is actually in bed with APC, by the way, right? Constantly try to give credibility to the election, but they are not satisfied. And well, it's not really flying. So the problem now is Femi Foni-Kayode went on Twitter and he tweeted this and more, okay? But just read this. Whether Joe Biden calls to congratulate him or not. Official Bat is the president-elect of the biggest, richest, most populous, most advanced, and most enlightened nation in Africa. And the Western world's biggest trading partner on the continent. They need us as much as we need them. This is somebody living in his own world, in their own echo chamber. And as it is, they actually don't give a damn about the consequences of their action because it is Nigeria. Waiting will happen. So he continued. Yes, the American State Department and the American ambassador to Nigeria both congratulated Asiwaju. For this, we are eternally grateful, and it reflects a measure of respect. However, it's time for Joe to pick up the phone and add his voice. We are a big nation. We deserve no less. This is Femi Foni-Kayode. And do you know why? Because there were reports that in America, okay, they were so shocked and surprised that the reports they were receiving, especially from INEC, how they deceived all of you to believe that they actually put a technology in place that will reduce or stop rigging and give credibility. So they convinced and deceived millions of the people in Nigeria and outside Nigeria that they were ready. It looked like it was going to be, but it wasn't. Sure, you get. So from 25th of February, today is 15th of March. Is it 15th? Right. The president and the government of America is actually yet to acknowledge Tinubu as the president-elect of Nigeria. And it is not by error or by omission or by anything. So diplomatically behind the scene, one of the trouble that Tinubu is battling with right now, one of it that is actually likely going to make them to lose Lagos. Please don't take my word for that, okay? In case if you are so neck deep in their propaganda about Lagos. Normally it's meant to be working right now, mobilizing for Sanwo-Iku in Lagos. At least to show some, throw his weight around and the rest, instead of leaving Sanwo-Iku to his fate right now. The reason is because, yes, INEC has declared him winner. Okay? No one is actually interested in who is declared winner. They are now questioning the process. Now, if the process is faulty, then the result is also going to be what? Unacceptable. So that is why America, for now, completely ignore Kolu. Do you want to know what their report says? They said that if the president of America says congratulations and all of that to Kolu, that too may actually have his own reprisal, political backfiring for him in America as well. Trust me. Because as many of you, as the whole world pay attention to what was going on in Nigeria, how it was going to happen, how it was going to end and the rest, yeah, so was America, as well as the population of Nigerians in America as well. Now take this to the bank, right? So all of this, Nigeria has become a political, the Nigeria election has become a political slippery slopey, is it called slippery slope? Even for America, as we speak. And Kolu, remember, one of the indictments that the whole world knows about, that actually made them to refer to Kolu as, this is how they see him, okay, is because of his American heroin deal, the indictment in America, okay, where he forfeited over $460,000, okay, in heroin trade, as well as other crimes there, right? So they believe that they say a drug baron in Austria, right? They say a drug baron wins presidential election in Africa's biggest economy. Depression, anxiety, uncertainty beclouds Nigeria's political space as a drug kingpin wins the election. In Poland, Nigeria chooses a known drug lord as leader. These are what actually were on their front pages in so many of these international media. Okay? So Joe might be somebody who is off and on as well, yeah? Those around him, they are smart enough to ignore them. And I think when they told Tinubu's presidential campaign council that normally congratulations should come naturally, but the report they received in America and all over the place is that it was the worst and the worst election ever. And in fact, it is an election that is pretty much like confirmed Nigeria sitting on a keg of gunpowder, very divided. And it is just plutocrats, okay? Looters, rigging election to go and loot more. So if they give credibility to Kolu, that means they also they endorse and then approve a drug baron, a Boko Haram sponsor as vice, a drug baron as president. That can actually cost Joe Biden himself his own election. In fact, the Democrats in America will likely revote too. Now, this is the diplomatic side that he didn't say. That was what prompted those Twitter rage from the For Food Coyote. However, there is something even bigger cooking. You know NADECO, yeah? During the military era in Nigeria, there was a group called NADECO. I think it's just the acronym for National Democratic Coalition, something like that. NADECO, at the time, comprises of supposed Nigerians. And guess what? Of different background. Politicians, journalists, citizens, and on, who were in exile. I'm talking about those who had to run for their lives in the hands of the dictator, Sani Abacha. So they met in exile all over the world. There was no social media. There was no internet that much then, right? But they were able to keep a knitted relationship that became a global movement of exiled Nigerians who are fighting a barbaric, tyrannical government back in Nigeria. So they received the support of a global government. America, UK, everywhere they were. They were welcomed, they were supported, they were, you know what I mean? However, the real battle that gave them prominence was that of June 12, 1993 election. Considered to have been fairest, or whatever SS they added to it in the history of elections in Nigeria. In fact, it actually brought together supposed divided Nigerians to find a common cause, which they saw as the military. So Tinubu was a member, a founding member. So at the time, when they finally and successfully, right, pressured and forced the government of the military government in Nigeria to transition to a democratic government in Nigeria, a lot of them stayed out of politics. And some of them actually went into politics for real. And they contributed to the ruined and destroyed Nigeria that you are witnessing today. And today, the same NADECO that comprises of northerners, southerners, easterners, all over, in shame, they had to come out to reject what happened in Nigeria. And in fact, they have now took it upon themselves to start a global campaign to ensure that if Bokwari, if APC, if INEC Mahmudu, and even if Kolu, Bokwari, and the rest of them, including your judiciary, according to them, finally forced Kolu on you, it will have no legitimacy. And in fact, you should be ready for that bumpy ride ahead. Trust me, it's not going to be a nice ride. If it was going to be a nice one, I'm talking to you. Why are you not celebrating? Since Kolu is the president-elect, how come you are on social media fighting? Your campaign has ended. Abi? Shebi, you are supposed to be preaching that everybody come together, let us work. But you are worried, aren't you? 2 African countries in recent times where this same election rigging, manipulation, vote buying, intimidation, violence, and all that have been their own traditional ways of choosing their leaders. In the last few years, also experienced a kind of historical shock where those who actually controlled power rig their own what do you call it? Not proteges, no. Their own proxies in to take over power from them, only for such electoral haste to be upturned by their Supreme Court. So there's so much that is still going to go into all of this. But NADECO seems to be leading the charge. Do you mind? Let's go take a listen to what they actually said about Kolu and what they are doing. Listen, I am just somebody who is here to help you, even if you are a Tinubu supporter, okay? Even if you are averse to truth, listen. you also need this information. You need them to make you understand probably how to prepare or how to get ready for what is actually coming. Trust me, it's not going to be nice. Legitimacy, Tinubu is not going to get that. And as we speak, even APC, Egbekegbe, do you know something? They have also started singing rigging too. Do you know that they started another one? They said Labour Party rigged elections in Lagos. That they have evidence. And can you believe the audacity that Labour Party come to Lagos to rig elections? Say, is like a poisoned corn, not a poisoned roasted corn. You are collecting down payment for your death. Trust. And if you don't, I advise you to please follow me. NADECO.
Members of NADECO here present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press, I bring you greetings on behalf of NADECO and the people of Nigeria. NADECO welcomes you to the first of its series of events planned over the next several weeks regarding the recently held presidential election in Nigeria. For those who are not quite familiar with NADECO, I'll give you a little bit about the group. The National Democratic Coalition, for short, NADECO, is Nigeria's premier and foremost pro-democracy group based here in Washington, D.C. It was initially registered in Nigeria in 1994 by a group of very prominent politicians and pro-democracy campaigners who needed a platform to fight the military regime of the infamous dictator General Sani Abacha after he took power through a military coup in November 1993 and reneged on his promises to hold elections and return Nigeria to democracy, as was its birthright since obtaining freedom from British colonial rule on October 1, 1992. No, sorry, October 1, 1960. Sorry about that. A broad-based coalition transcending ethnic and religious lines was formed, which later gave birth to NADECO in Nigeria. No sooner had NADECO begun a peaceful resistance against the then military leader, General Sani Abacha, started to assassinate and jail its members. In order to save their lives, several of NADECO members fled into exile to neighboring African countries, the United Kingdom, the United States, and Canada. In 1995, those NADECO members who fled from Nigeria got together and registered a new NADECO in the United States. Since 1995, when NADECO was registered here in the US, it has continued to push for good governance and credible elections in Nigeria. NADECO alleges that the election results pronounced by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on February 25 through 26, 2023, are fundamentally at odds with Nigerian election laws and constitute a wholesale disenfranchisement of Nigerian voters caused by the pervasive rot of Nigeria's increasingly kleptocratic political structure. NADECO demands that INEC draw back its curtains to let the full light of truth prove the transparency and veracity of the 2023 electoral process. It is without question that nearly all of the electoral reforms implemented to safeguard the 2023 Nigerian elections have been savaged by INEC and scattered to the winds of tyranny. It is beyond debate that initial investigation into the 2023 Nigerian presidential election discloses that Nigeria's most recent election is the polar opposite of transparency, fairness, and electoral integrity. This election was polluted by blatant bribery and widespread corruption. Even INEC itself has admitted to its abject failures to comply with the requisite transparency laws mandating real-time electronic transmission of election results from the polling units to the public, instead opting to cloak the electronic results in darkness before emerging with a declared rather than proved winner who is presently incapable of being fully embraced by the world. The INEC action clearly constitutes negligence per se and electoral fraud, as it violated the very statutory provisions and guidelines that are designed to protect against the type of fraud caused by its failure to transmit the results in real time. The people of Nigeria are supposed to be the ones the statute is designed to protect. Instead, they have found themselves at the receiving end of the resulting gross injustice. NADECO maintains that the 2023 presidential election is an attempt to disenfranchise the Nigerian people through the four horsemen of democracy's doom: bribery, voter intimidation, insecurity, and vote rigging, all harnessed to skew the results of the 2023 presidential election. NADECO calls upon the people and the judiciary of Nigeria and international community to join hands in a concerted effort toward global condemnation and absolute rejection of the hasty, hollow, and illegitimate result declared by INEC as being contrary to the will of the people and the rule of law. Here are some positions that NADECO has taken. NADECO is gravely concerned about the irregularities, voter intimidation, violence, the breach of the National Electoral Act, and most importantly, the abrupt and hurried pronouncement of the dubious 2023 presidential election results. This, in our viewpoint, signals a whole disenfranchisement of voters in Africa's largest nation. NADECO's goals and singular mandate have always been to fight for the rule of law and democracy in Nigeria as Nigeria's watchdog of democracy. NADECO hereby, as a first step, formally severs its relationship with Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu as a former founding member of NADECO USA for his participation in the worst electoral fraud in Nigeria's recent history. NADECO and Tinubu fought Abacha as the military dictator who scuttled the will of the Nigerian people in 1993 June 12 elections. Ironically, exactly 30 years later, in 2023, NADECO is fighting the same species of dictatorship, but only this time a much more dangerous civilian dictatorship.
A much more dangerous civilian dictatorship. Let me explain something to you, my listeners or my viewers. Like I said from the beginning, rigging elections in Nigeria is like normal, okay? But what is not normal this time around is the fact that the person they rigged, that they declared winner, as everybody saw how it happened, is unable to even celebrate that he won. The country is more or less like in a mourning mood. And rather than them to start preparing for transition and all of that, they are lobbying the world to endorse them. And you know why? The person they declared third is saying that whoever declares him, which is the INEC, okay, they have declared just whatever they cooked on their own. They are questioning the process. The process that said, if you vote, okay, your result will be transmitted right there. And this was the fraud and lie that INEC sold to the whole world, only for them to give you beavers machines. All of you were given beavers machines. But guess what? On the day of elections, they were uploading results of National Assembly elections, Senate, reps, successfully, no problem. But when it got to the presidential, they shut it down completely. And they resorted back to manual way of rigging that they said they were trying to avoid. So which means INEC backtracked on their own law. So if that is proven, that is what happened, then the result of that process is null and void. Do you get that now? That's their fight. But they said they rigged the election, but they accepted the National Assembly. No. You are mixing it up. The technology that was supposed to upload the result of all elections that day, they intentionally shot the one for presidential. And while everybody is struggling to upload presidential here and there, at the back end, they were writing the result, they were writing the figures. When they finally released it for some of you, they were already uploading ridiculous, inaccurate results, including people uploading their faces as result of the unit, uploading their legs, uploading their all ridiculous as results. Now, without even collating everything, the same INEC hurriedly at 4:10 a.m. announced the winner of the result, even with all of that, even when only 60% of the said result has been uploaded on their own server. Where did they get the result they announced from? All the numbers. That's exactly what they are asking now. That if they can prove it, if they can prove all the numbers for PDP, for Labour, for APC and the rest of them, yeah, then there and then is right to now say congratulations to whoever is now the winner. If it is Kolu, around that time you can then say, congratulations. But to now access that record that INEC announced, is now the problem. Do you get what I'm saying? That beavers they gave you is just a decoy. Something to make you think, they are using it to verify election. I mean, your voters, so that people will not vote more or you will not vote twice. It's just a decoy. What they actually did was that the same thing they normally do. Multi-printing, writing results, mutilating results, and destroy, that. Where there were no elections, results to be announced. Yeah? So while everybody was holding beavers, holding the INEC officials with beavers machine, at the back end, election law, this guy is also a member of NADECO. He was actually he actually traveled to Nigeria as an observer, as a voter, and this is his own report where NADECO said we are no longer with Kolu. He's no longer a member. We have no relationship with him anymore, and we will never have any. Let's go tomorrow. It's going to be a long night, right? have you liked this broadcast? Have you actually thumb up there? Have you liked it? No? Come on. I'll be back.
And we were participant observers in the election that just held in Nigeria. Or should I clarify, the sham elections that just held in Nigeria. I want to point out that as a participant observer, I traveled to my home state to participate in the elections. And the Beavers technology refused to accredit me. So I experienced disenfranchisement right there and then. I know that at least half a dozen of my family members who voted in 2019 were unable to vote this time because of the cash crunch that occurred in the economy. So there were systematic efforts to disenfranchise and intimidate or strangle voters from being able to participate. But you can imagine my shock after monitoring in Benue, Plateau, and FCT and seeing thousands of Nigerians peacefully coming out to vote, to see that the results were not uploaded. Now, just to show you the extent of the mischief that occurred, the results for the National Assembly elections, which occurred at the same time, simultaneously with the presidential results, were able to be uploaded, but the presidential election results were not uploaded. And till this day, as we speak, the results have not even been completely uploaded. What is even shocking is that we have seen photographs of individuals, a woman in a bathroom, uploaded supposedly as results on INEC's IRF page till this day. How can you elect someone on the basis of the photograph of a woman in the bathroom? I want to quickly mention that a lot of the international observers who were there were as disenchanted as I was. There were 4 African presidents, former presidents, who were in Nigeria to observe the elections. There were over 144,000 observers deployed across the country, and they all were disenchanted by what they saw. I want to say that what happened in Nigeria was not election observation, but a crime watch. We watched a crime being perpetrated on a country of 200 million people with utter and complete impunity. I also want to say that President Jimmy Carter has been vindicated. He went and observed elections in Nigeria many years ago, and he was so upset at the impunity and the brazen theft of the election that he vowed never to go back to Nigeria again. And as that distinguished president is in hospice care, he stands vindicated because Nigeria has refused to learn its lesson. One of the American observers that I spoke with mentioned 2 things. One, he said that, well, at least this election was better than the 2003 election. And I said to him, if we're going back 20 years to compare, then we have not made any progress. And as NADECO has pointed out, this is even 30 years. The June 12 election, which was a travesty and a brazen rape of democracy or attempted democracy, is basically happening again. The sad point is that one of our co-travelers in the effort to restore democracy to Nigeria is now complicit in undermining democracy in Nigeria. In 1997, when I came on exile myself, after having been imprisoned by General Abacha, I had the privilege of meeting Senator Bola Tinubu in NADECO in exile in the UK. So we have been in the trenches fighting for democracy, and it is painful for us to see what is happening, that we're not making the progress that we think we should make. I want to wrap up my remarks by making a couple of points. That it is not that the elections in Nigeria were handled badly, but that the rigging in Nigeria was handled badly. There was no effort, there was no sincere effort to conduct an election in Nigeria. What happened was an insincere effort to conduct rigging. And that is why you will see cancellations. You will see unbelievable atrocities that were done. They didn't even make a genuine effort to hide the manipulation of the elections. I also want to make this second point, that it isn't that they failed to meet global standards, but that they failed to meet even their own standards. There is no way that INEC can say that the travesty that occurred was what they had promised time and time and again. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that I join my voice to what NADECO has said today. The INEC chairman needs to resign for once again betraying the trust of the Nigerian people. The United States government should not dignify the travesty that has occurred by legitimizing illegitimate rulers. And most importantly, we must not fail the young Nigerians who came out in droves in the sun and put their fate in their own hands, that they wanted to rescue their country from bad leadership, only to be abused and misused in this manner. So I call upon the government of General Buhari, if he has any dignity and if he has any aspirations to any legacy whatsoever, to salvage Nigeria from the travesty that has occurred in the sham elections that held. Thank you very much.
46, 247, 248, 249, 250! Ovi for president, Ovi for president. Hey, Ovi, Fita, Ovi, I love you, Wallahi. Fita, Ovi, I love you, Wallahi.
Travesty. We call it charade. But according to that eyewitness, he said they went to supervise election rigging. That they didn't even hide it. Like, try to make it a little. You know, I told you, rigging is not new in Nigeria. But this particular one, I mean, they will say election, then rigging. So we call it charade. They call it a travesty of democracy. You need to hear more. You do need to hear more. And it breaks hearts. Seriously. Especially those who are, all of us who are going to be the victims of this. Yeah, we are going to be the victims of this, right? Still talking about the NADECO. They also have their legal counsel. Their legal counsel also have this to say. I think this is particular one that will actually get you moody now. Be prepared for it. Okay? Something that will remind you and make you feel like, what happened to Nigeria? What really happened? How did Nigeria get to this stage? How come that despite the endowments that many Nigerians have and different exploits the Nigerians have actually carried out all over the world? Why this? You may not know why, you may not have the answer, but I promise you one thing. This one will get you indeed really moody. Consequences of a stolen election, right? Watch this.
Honored to be part of an illustrious group such as NADECO that has a long history of trying to do the right thing and keep democracy safe, restore democracy, and restore the rule of law. And the primary question I think that should be asked, most of the people here in the audience know this, is why should we care about Nigeria? Why should the United States care about Nigeria? Why should the international community care about Nigeria? What would you say if I told you that there was a country that has arguably the world's oldest democracy with full participation of all of its members? What would you say if I told you that there is a country where a group of people has the oldest written constitution featuring guarantees for individual freedom and due process in the world? What would you say if I told you there was a country that featured full participation of women in its political system, both to vote and to govern? And they started doing this when Europe was in the Dark Ages, in the 800s. What would you say if I told you there was a country that is consistently in the top 10 of oil-producing nations since the 1980s. What would you say if I told you this same country has never been openly antagonistic to the United States? Has never been an enemy of the United States. In fact, has never been an enemy of the West. What would you say if I told you this very same country has the greatest number of doctors living in the United States of America per capita than any other nation in the world? More than England, more than Russia, more than Germany. What would you say if I told you that 29% of the immigrants from this country over the age of 25 hold a graduate degree, when you compare that to 11% of the population of the United States over the age of 25 holding a graduate degree? This country has almost 3 times more people holding graduate degrees here in the United States, contributing to our economy and our well-being and our security. What would you say if I told you the same country has 45% of the involvement of its people, the immigrants that live here, the diaspora, in education services, and most are professors at top universities? What would you say if I told you the same country I'm talking about has they're entering the medical fields and the technological fields in a rapidly expanding rate? They're increasing the U.S. economy. They are entrepreneurs. They are making America better, building tech companies in the United States to help the people back home. Would anybody be able to guess that country was in Africa? Would anybody be able to guess that country is Nigeria? Because it is. That's Nigeria. So when you say, why Nigeria, it is almost a fool's question. One of the greatest nations that has all of these things going for it, and yet we constantly turn our back on Nigeria. Shouldn't we be favoring this nation? Shouldn't we be more attentive to this nation? Shouldn't we treat this nation, this giant of an entire continent, not of a region or an area, of an entire continent that stands out as a shining beacon? Shouldn't we treat them as especially favored allies of the United States and indeed of the West? Especially given the insecurity in the world today with issues relating to extremism and energy shortages. Don't you think that this is a nation that the world should readily leap to the fore to protect, to ensure the well-being so it can continue on its pathway to greatness? Yeah, we're talking about Nigeria, the largest nation in Africa. It is the wealthiest nation in Africa, and yet it's the poorest country in the world. Nigeria now has more people living below the poverty line than any other nation in the world, which is a remarkable feat, given that there are 234 million people in Nigeria and approximately 1.4 billion people in India, the former dubious leader of world's poverty. How can we let that happen? How can we turn our back? How is that possible? Nigeria is also the site of the largest genocidal slaughter the world has seen since World War II. And yet nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to do anything about it. I am here very proud to be involved with NADECO because NADECO wants to do something about that. Something is very, very, very wrong. And it starts with the ability to choose your leaders in full, open, and fair elections. Nigeria has descended into a kleptocracy. And what that means is theft is the coin of the realm. Not due process, not laws, not fundamental fairness, not the pursuit of happiness, not freedom, not family, not religion, not work, not prosperity, but who can steal the most first and go back and steal some more. And that is something that I believe the Nigerian people can solve on their own, but they're going to have the help. We cannot continue to turn our back on Nigeria. The international ramifications or aspects are very clear. Article 25 of the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights, which was adopted in 1966, became law and active in 1976, was adopted by the United States in 1992 and by Nigeria, fully adopted, says that every citizen every citizen shall have the right and the opportunity, without any of the distinctions mentioned in Article 2 and without unreasonable restrictions, to take part in the conduct of public affairs directly or through freely chosen representatives, and to vote. This treaty signed by Nigeria and by the United States, and by the way, in the United States, when we sign a treaty, it becomes the law of the land with certain restrictions. So the United States has to comply with this. Nigeria has to comply with this international edict. It is as fundamental as any human right. And let me quote the UN, the Covenant 25 says, to vote and to be elected at genuine periodic elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage and shall be held by secret ballot, guaranteeing the free expression of the will of the electors. Honored to.
You listen to that? A lot of you said it's so emotional when it was reeling out those qualities of Nigerians. A lot of Africans, they look forward to Nigeria. You have no idea. Even though majority of them don't know that those who are in Nigeria, they will switch their citizenship with theirs in some of these African countries too. But here is the irony of it. They continue to present Nigeria as the giant of Africa based on the population as well as the quality of citizens that you actually meet out there who are like, they are breaking, like, you have no idea. So a lot of people were looking forward or looking up to Nigeria, only for Nigeria to continue to disappoint them. And Nigeria then became the role model for bad governance, bad leadership, divisive politics, and so on in Africa. Like, who is going to be the big brother? Who is going to wield the big stick? Nigeria, the useless big brother? Ah, come on. Shut up, Jerry. We are talking about, you know what I mean? And like Nigeria is always, it will always disappoint you. I really feel sorry for a lot of people, right? Who still have so much emotion attached to believing that Nigeria go still better. I still believe Nigeria go better. I kind of feel for you because I know those of whose feelings are actually genuine. But now people like you, then they manipulate, deceive, to validate whatever fraud they put together. Once they get what they want to get, they will break your heart again. Do you get that? There are some of us that, as young as we are, Nigeria has broken our hearts again and again and again and again, that we could barely spare any emotion for any promise that they will say, oh, there is a shining light on the horizon. Let us be positive and all of that, right? We actually have no emotion whatsoever left. But it is like the baby and the biblical cord. Somehow, you just can't separate them that much without, them remembering where it's buried. So until Nigeria is disintegrated, Nigerians inside Nigeria right now will never meet their potential. It's going to be a generational battle. Unfortunately, not many actually believe that is possible, right? Not many. Okay. Back to the fraudulent elections. According to NADECO, it is not about the winner. It is about the process. I mean, was that not what Obi himself said just a few days ago when they denied him access to inspect, the access or grant him access to inspect the election material? They said, Shebi, you have declared Tinubu winner. Okay, fine. That's okay. We are not going to say congratulations if we don't see the numbers. Show us the numbers. So Obi said,
the declared winner
did not win. You might have been declared by whatever means, but you've not won the election. Reuben, to win is to win the people. Democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. That means if you must win the people. But if you don't win the people, you've not won. And I can tell you, the last election, the declared person did not win. However, that is what we're challenging. The rascality is what we're challenging.
The rascality said is challenging. So what happened is that INEC that declared winner, okay, she just bring out their document to show how they arrive at the number. That's just what they're asking. And that is exactly what the likes of Femi, Foni Kayode, Dele Alake, and the rest of them don't want. Do you remember this, their press release, where they are like asking everybody to come and congratulate him? But look at the aggression. Look at the, the blood shots. Look at the tone. Listen to the tone of their voice. It can't be like person who steal somebody who stole somebody's something, and then start shouting on you. So yeah, you know what I mean? Like if they shout on you, if they scream at you, you'll be scared, and then you forget it. I'll take you back before I take you to Washington again. Washington, D.C. Do you remember this press conference of these guys? It's a flashback. Oh, this is not recent. Oh, just about 2 weeks ago. Flashback.
Restricted to the campaign podiums. But obviously, this is after the campaign. At his press conference yesterday, he said with a lot of emotions that what he wanted to come and stop in Nigeria is fraud, corruption. And he gave an example of his own type of corruption. That in this country, that this is a country where we have seen people, lawyers, becoming SAN without attending law school.
Very sad. That's terrible.
Go and listen again and watch again.
Very sad.
How can a lawyer become a senior advocate of Nigeria without going to law school?
Yes.
How can that lawyer even become a lawyer?
Yes. It's very sad.
Without attending the law school. So, what that tells us, those of us who are analysts, when we psychoanalyze such a person at that level, spewing lies and fake statistics, it must be an incorrigible liar.
Yes.
And when a person is an incorrigible liar, there is a deeper problem. The problem is pathological. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just... Is this working? Hello, can you hear me? Hello? You can hear me? Okay. Let me just add this to what my colleagues have said. First of all, that Peter Obi is an incorrigible liar is a fact. But quite apart from that, we have to understand that the PDP, which is the real focus that I have to say, and I have to focus on, are a castrated machine. Totally and completely castrated. They came into this election, as Dele said, without all their limbs intact. So the outcome was very obvious from the start. We knew this would happen. We also knew that they would whine, they would lie, they would complain, and they would feed their own egocentric nature by telling the sort of lies that their candidate told yesterday. But we understand the pain, so we can allow them to do that. I mean, that's perfectly natural when you've lost an election and your party has been totally and completely decimated. So it's understandable. What I think is something that we just cannot forgive is the attempt to incite Nigerians. Because there is an attempt to incite Nigerians against INEC and against this result and against our candidate. This is unacceptable. To get on national TV and quote and say that our candidate was described as a drug baron in a foreign land is utterly shameless. For Atiku to say that, he's nothing but shameless.
The president
and I refute that. This is the president-elect of the Federal Republic of Nigeria that we're talking about. And I completely refute that. It's unacceptable behavior, unacceptable language. Atiku is a wicked and treacherous man, a dark and malevolent soul, and an incorrigible and unscrupulous liar. He claims to have played a role in the June 12th struggle. That is patently false. He was amongst those that betrayed MKO Abiola and the June 12th struggle. Years later, he betrayed Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, his mentor, Olusegun Obasanjo, his boss, Umaru Yar'Adua, his brother, Goodluck Jonathan, his friend, Muhammadu Buhari, his president, and the PDP as a party. That is his party. That is the creature that claims that he won the election. Unacceptable behavior. Now let me end with this. He has a gorilla that follows him around. We all know that. But let me tell you where this is all going to end. And mark what I'm about to say. Both that gorilla and all the others that are encouraging him to be belligerent, insulting, and telling lies to the people about what he claims to be his own mandate. By the time Atiku finishes negotiating, when all is lost, he loses in the court, he will negotiate. He will come, he will beg us, and then he will go to Dubai, and he will not take any of them with him. They'll be left here all alone. And that is what they have to bear in mind. This mandate was given by 8 million Nigerian citizens, born free, freely gave their, almost 9, freely gave their mandate. Are we to be pushed around? Are we to be told that we're insignificant? Are we not Nigerians as well? We will go to court. We will defeat them in court. We will defend our mandate, and they must not incite. We know where this is all heading. We will not allow it to happen. There will be no June 12th. This election will stand. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be the president of the Nigeria for the next 4 to 8 years by God's grace. That's all I have to say.
Right, let's have questions.
If you don't be vote APC for a year, go your house. Nobody force you come here. Go house, so if I see you vote another, I will call Luca. If I see you vote another part, go ahead and house. You don't come joke for here. Please tell it where you get. I APC, go your house. Go relax.
That's in Lagos. So one of the thousands of evidences that's going to show that indeed election didn't happen in Nigeria. In fact, they couldn't even rig well. That's what one of the observers said, that they couldn't rig well. Did you hear Femi Fani-Kayode? Everybody's coming to make deal with us. Everybody's coming to negotiate. Did you hear that? Yeah? Somebody that is insulting people, using foul languages on them, is now like, it's complaining that somebody like Gorilla was, you know what I mean? So that's Femi for Food Kayode and all that. Let's go back to that Washington. Where the legal counsel to NADECO was making a speech. Let's continue that.
Not the result, it's the process. How our government works, how our elections work. And the process of this election in the 2023 Nigerian presidential elections appears to be fundamentally flawed. We believe, NADECO believes, that the February 25 to 26, 2023 election, the results, the hasty announcement of the results, are fundamentally at odds with the Nigerian election laws. And as Dr. Ogebi said very clearly, they didn't just violate rules, they violated their own laws. INEC glorified their efforts to make this the cleanest, the purest, the most transparent and fair election in Nigerian history, in African history. And yet, they violated every single fundamental tenet in every single law. They instituted the bimodal voter accreditation system. You've heard about that, the BVAS. All that is, make no mistake about it, there's a lot on the internet that seems to people want to believe that when you voted with the BVAS that recorded your vote and your vote was sent somewhere and it went to a server and it was tabulated and somehow Tinubu or the APC were able to hijack that electronic signal. That's not what happened. It was more pernicious than that. It was more old-fashioned than that. All the Beavis does was gave you two modes of identification, both your card, you put your voting card, your PVC in, and it also did your fingerprint and face identification. But it failed. And the reason Beavis was important is so that people couldn't vote more than once. Vote early, vote often. The reason it's important is so people could not vote that had fake cards. And on the issue of the PVC cards, INEC announced, this is INEC themselves, said that there were 87.2 million PVC cards collected. That was out of 93 million registered voters. So approximately 6 million people were registered. They just didn't bother to get their voting card. No one knows why. It just happens. But what's fascinating is, if you consider it true that 87.2 million people had PVC voting cards and could have voted, the declared winner of this election received 8.7 million votes. Now, out of 87 million, the math's not real hard. That means that Mr. Tinubu got 10% of the vote. He will be ruling the wealthiest economy in Africa with a mandate of 10% of the population. That's extraordinary. Something is seriously wrong. Something is seriously wrong. Additionally, we believe that what has to happen and why we're here today, and NADECO is leading the charge, we believe that INEC has to prove itself. It has to prove the results it announced were true and were real. There are 176,600 polling stations. That's a lot of polling stations. INEC's rules required each polling station to collect the votes, count the votes, and they do it the old-fashioned way. They get the paper votes, they count them. They put them in stacks for each of the primary candidates. They were to gather those results, publish the local results, and then transmit the results, and ultimately they would go to Abuja and be certified. Well, what happened was they published some of the results early on, and then they took them down. And so what they have is something that looks a little bit like this, scribbling, when it used to look like this, where it was written. Someone didn't like the results. That's what appears to have happened. Dr. Ogebe observed it happening. So what we have is vote rigging, vote buying, and bribery. So despite INEC's efforts, nothing good happened. And we're back to the same old thing, the same old efforts. So what do we do? What do we do in the United States? What do we do as members of the diaspora? What do we do as international attorneys or international law folks? What do we do to ensure democracy can thrive? That the promise of 1960 can become true again, hopefully.
Hopefully. That's what I wanted you to hear before I stop the video. Then I'll give you the concluding part. Because they know. Some of you may be wondering, because the usual way, oh, look at that white man. Oh, don't trust them, the imperialists. Oh, the capitalists. They are just calling this because of our crude oil. I know those are the common, what do you call it? Common reactions when you see white men speaking against what is wrong in Africa generally. I understand that sentiment, but there's something I want you to also please pay attention to. He, as an attorney, working for pro-democracy, groups and all of them, normally, right,